Hi, I'm Chris Alexander, Quality Improvement Consultant, and I'm here at Taft today. And Jim, you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, I'm Jim Doherty. I'm a high school algebra and 8th grade teacher at Taft, and this is my second year teaching.
Okay. Jim, I understand you've been using quality improvement this past year in your classroom. And can you tell us how the QI process has impacted your instruction?
Well, well, first of all, very positively. I mean, I think it's caused me to be very critical about the different things, the different shortcomings that I'm seeing in my instruction, and the cycle, the 2-week cycles have been really helpful for me in order to give a sense of urgency to improvement. And so, trying to come up with different ways to improve instruction and to measure it so that, so I can see, what's working and what's not working. So I think, especially the second year teacher, has been really, really helpful to, just to speed up the improvement and to increase the impact to students.
And so the impact students have. So what impact has it had with the students, do you think?
Well, I think with, obviously with some cycles it's been better than others. I mean, for example, we recently did one with learned problem sets or solved problem sets where students would see problems that have already been solved and answer certain prompts to try to understand what's going on before they learn the material. And we saw a lot of positive results from that, and that's something that I probably wouldn't have gotten to. It would have been something that I might have backburnered if we weren't on 2-week cycles and I wasn't trying to find ways to improve and finding shortcomings in terms of our learning. So that's an example of a really impactful change that we were able to make and we were able to measure, and something that I'd sustain through next year.
And what have you learned specifically, or what did you start doing differently, possibly, from QI?
I think for me, I mentioned it, the urgency to change and the urgency to reflect and the reflection with data, I think is probably been the most useful aspect of that for me. I mean, especially as I'm learning, and I've got this humongous learning curve. It gives me some structure in order to evaluate and assess. It gives me some peer feedback in terms of what's going well with my peers, and maybe to validate some of the things that are going on that I'm observing, and then just to improve my instruction for the students so that so we're able to to make as much of an impact in the year that we're able to. I mean, so I think quality improvement's been really, really great in terms of that sense of urgency, in terms of that framework, and then just all the supports that come along with it.
Mm-hmm. If you think about next year and what you've learned this whole entire year, if you could turn the clock back and do something differently, or start the year off something differently, what would you do different?
I think the biggest thing from a QI standpoint is to find ways to incorporate student feedback and give the students ownership in the QI process. And so, just from my understanding when we started, I think it was really adult driven. It was driven by me and my peers, and I think having that student impact or student feedback from the beginning and student input from the beginning would be really, really helpful in terms of buy-in, and then for them to understand, this is what's happening, this is why it's happening, and I think we would probably, what I'm anticipating is we'll see bigger results, just because they understand what's going on and they have an active voice in what's going on in the classroom. And I think tied to that is finding useful ways or useful representations for them to see, to see clearly what their progress is for whatever project we're doing or whatever cycle we're on at that particular time. So those would be the two things, and they're all focused on students. So I think that having student impact could make student input could make QI even more impactful.
And that's some good insight and probably some good advice. So what advice would you give to a teacher that's possibly just starting out with the QI journey?
Well, I think nearly everybody. I mean, I think you, as a teacher, you kind of like the autonomous aspect of teaching, and so any time somebody comes in and asks you to do something different, there's a certain level of resistance to it. And I think that what I learned from QI, I mean, just feeling that resistance to begin with, is that really you can take it in any direction that you want to. So it's really it's a framework and it's a support system that allows you to to keep that autonomy, but it really gives you some supports to improve your instruction and improve the overall education of students. And so I think from that standpoint, I mean, I think overcoming that initial resistance and really understanding that there's a lot of autonomy that you have within the framework is, that would be the advice that I'd give.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.